Hey, what's going on, fantasy football heads? This is the first video for this channel I've created called FF Real Talk for Fantasy Football Real Talk, and which is going to be pretty much just that. It's going to be the script and to the point things that can help you during the drafts, during your season, auctions, whether it's standard drafting, whatever have you, even IDP stuff. So everything you want, fantasy football, tips, advice, whatever, you'll be able to find it through this channel. And just a little about me, because you do want to have some reference and take advice from people who knows what they're doing. A little about me, I've been playing since 2005, and I've had relatively good success with it through free leagues and even in pay leagues. And just a point of reference, the last 2 years, I played in 20 leagues, went to the playoffs in 16 of the 20, and won 5 championships between those 2 years. So if you know anything about fantasy football, the whole thing is about trying to be one of the last 4 teams to get to the playoffs. So 16 out of 20 isn't bad. And I wasn't saying that to brag. I was just trying to let you know that I've had some marked amount of success with it, in case you were wondering who I am to be saying anything. So I've taken a little time to take it serious and learn a few things through things I've done right and mistakes. So that's what I'm going to give you right now. But this first video is just going to be strictly on standard drafts as a whole. And everything I'm going to be talking about is going to be based on ESPN's fantasy football, pretty much. Whether it's lobbies or leagues you join, pretty much it's going to be ESPN. But any of these tips I'm giving will translate to wherever you play, whether it's Yahoo, CBS, whatever have you. So I think the advice will still be valuable. So the first thing, if we're going to talk about, standard leagues, we're not going to talk about player info. We're just going to talk about tips to help you during standard drafts in terms of the draft itself. In a snake draft, in case you don't know what it is it's a moving draft that starts with the player that's randomly, he picks first, second, all the way through. Let's say it's a standard 10-team league, to the last player this in the random selection, the 10th person picks 10th, and then it comes backwards where the 10th person picks 11th also. So it's a moving snake format where it goes pretty much like that and then backwards. So the first person that got the first pick, he also has the 20th pick. So that makes it a little bit easy to understand. And he has the 21st pick, just like the 10th person had the 11th. So that just makes it a little easier for you to understand that. And it kind of makes things fair. And standard drafts are kind of the more easy ones where teams are pretty much balanced when it's all said and done, if everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing. When you're entering a draft, just make sure, I don't know if whether you're joining a team through the like in ESPN, it has teams that you can join that has different specifications of how the league's set up. If you like that, and you can join it that way, or you can join live draft lobbies that are pretty much going 24/7. You jump in and find a spot and you play against strangers you don't know, but it's going to be an active league and hopefully everyone participates. But just when you get in, know the standard time for your pick selections. If it's in a league you've joined, if the picks are 30 seconds, if it's a minute and 30 seconds, know the time you have to select your players. And know the rules of the league you're in. If you're joining in the draft lobby, it's going to be standard ESPN rules, and all you got to do is look those up to see what they are. But if you join a league that's existing that someone created, they'll have different rules, whether it's PPR, which is points per reception, IDP, which is using individual defensive players. The point system may be all the way around. Quarterbacks might get 6 points. They might get 4 points for a touchdown. Who knows? It's just all about making sure you know what type of league you're joining in, because once you're in and the draft starts, you're stuck. So make sure you know the rules. When you're joining draft lobbies, this is a rule that I personally subscribe to every time. In fantasy football, there's often a lot of collusion. You'll get in a league sometime every year, it never fails. There's two players in a league that'll try to cheat. They'll draft their team, the other team will draft their team, and then those two players, they try to trade. One team tries to trade its bench to somebody else's team for their starters. So what you'll have is one team that's a superpower and one team that absolutely sucks. And that team is geared up to beat everyone in the league. So, and it's called collusion. They're cheating. They're beating the spirit of the game. And although they know that it's by the letter of the game, you can trade anybody, but they're beating the spirit of the game. A way to avoid that is when you join into a draft lobby, if two players in there have the same last name, don't join that league. Just walk out of there. That's either somebody in their brother or sister, or the same guy who's got two accounts and he's trying to hustle. If you see the same last name, someone named such and such Jones, and then this such and such a different name Jones, just leave that league, because it'll save you a lot of trouble, because every year is the same. And if you do deal with collusion and you did follow that where there was no same last name, it's just two players cheating, you can always report that to ESPN, or just, vote within your league so that everybody blocks the trade, So that's just something, just a note, just a tidbit for me that I've learned over the years. Come to the draft prepared with your own cheat sheet of how you want to draft. ESPN or every other site has normal rankings that they determine players to be. And there are often hard set rules that, not rules, but hard set standards that generally are in the fantasy community. Take running back first, take quarterback second, or et cetera, et cetera. It's not necessarily hard and fast rules that are always going to work. You need to have your own thing in your own rankings. The rankings are set and they're good guidelines because these are done by so-called experts, but you don't want to subscribe to anything that you don't personally believe in. And you might have some favorites that you want to go with and, kind of avoid other players that a lot of people, or you have sleepers that you want to, make sure you have in your rankings. So have your own set cheat sheet and your own rankings so you can be able to be prepared yourself. With that, it leads to the next thing. Know the status of the player universe. Know the players who are suspended, hurt, retired, or whatever. Make sure you know what's going on. Don't pick players that you don't know their status of. Make sure you read the red marks by a player to determine whether they're healthy, whether they're suspended again, whether they're, whatever have you, something that makes them not available or makes their draft value less. You need to know the specifics. Don't just go in there, trying to grab Tim Tebow because you just really like him. Tim Tebow's not going to be playing. You'll be wasting a pick. So just know what's going on when that happens. When you join a draft, and I'm really going to stress this one because nothing infuriates me more. Whether it's a lobby draft or whether it's a team draft, whether you join in a league that you see, or whether it's a draft where you know some friends that you're joining in, be there for the draft. If you don't have the time, don't get in the league. If you know you're not going to make it, don't get in, because you're going to end up with a terrible team. It'll be comparably okay because it's going to be going based on the rankings, but you're going to end up with a team you didn't select. Nothing's worse than that to me. I never understand when I'm in lobbies drafting and 3 people just signed up to get in and these 3 people never show up. Why did you do it? It makes no sense to me. So don't be that guy. I mean, nothing aggravates me more, and I'm sure this is something that everyone else thinks who is there, who's taking the time. So if you don't have the time to do it, don't do it. Also, while you're in the draft lobby and you're going through what you have to do, whatever your strategy is, don't let the chatter distract you. You might be seeing people, you might have made a pick, or you might have seen another person make a pick, and towards the bottom you're seeing somebody say, what, such and such player, what, you're crazy and whatever, and next thing you know, you start making different things because you were embarrassed about what somebody else said or this, that, or the other. Pay no attention to draft chatter. Actually, you can just scroll up to the top of the chat feed and never see what anyone has to say. That's what I do. I don't like a lot of noise. Mind whatever when I'm drafting. I don't want anyone's participation. I don't want to hear your thoughts, this, that, I block everything out when I'm drafting. So that would be a good idea to do. Just scroll up to the top. And that leads to another thing that's pretty much on the same vein. Don't get caught in trying to do what you see everybody else doing. If someone's silly enough to take a team defense as good as Seattle is, if somebody's silly enough to take Seattle in the 5th round, let them. Don't sit there and your pick right after that be for the 49ers because somebody else took a defense. Let people make the mistakes that they make, and don't you be in a hurry to jump on the bandwagon of trend in the draft. Kickers will start going early. You'll see kickers start flying off in the 11th round in some crazy drafts. Don't be that guy. Get your kicker pick last or next to last. Don't be the dude that drafted early because somebody else did. It's just come prepared. Don't even let what other people do influence you in any way. Also, like I said, what I'm talking about now is pretty much free leagues or, free leagues, whether it's through a lobby or leagues you join. Also, there are also pay leagues that you'll be in you'll say you'll be in your job or whatever, or with your friends or some people, and they get a group together and they'll have a pot that you put a certain amount of buy-in money, say it's $100 entry fee into it, and this, that, or the other. Those are a lot of fun, and then it'll be a pot that you split up among the winners, or even some incentives that you get, along the way. That right there is cool, and it's a lot of fun, and I've won money doing this. So actually, it really boosts the excitement. But don't get in a pay league until you know what you're doing. If this is your first year playing fantasy, don't let somebody in the office pool talk you into playing a pay league. I wouldn't recommend it. Learn the game, learn how it goes, learn the ins and outs of what fantasy football is before you decide to go into a pay league. It's just smart as far as I'm concerned. Let me see. I'm sitting here looking at some notes that I'm putting in as I'm speaking. In a draft, think about what you're doing, but don't overthink it. Again, trust the strategy you came in with. Trust your cheat sheet. Trust, if you've played before, trust the things that have worked for you in the past, or abandon the things that haven't worked for you. Just don't overthink the situation. Next thing you know, you'll put your finger and pick some player that you was like, oh man, I know I didn't want that person. And that goes especially sure for auctions, and we'll get to that in the next video. Don't think too much, but make sure you thought soundly, and that'll lead you through a lot of headache during the regular season. And more important than anything else, and this is pretty much the last thing, there is no more important day in the fantasy season than the fantasy draft. I don't care if it's a snake draft, I don't care if it's an auction, I don't care what. There is no more important day than draft day. It is the one day that, and relatively speaking, it is the one day of the fantasy season where you have 100% control. Yeah, you may miss out on a player that you wanted, but you were able to choose the one that you did get. That was you and your decision that got it. You have complete control of who you pull off the board. It's the only time. Once you do that, everything's based on player performance. You can't control that. Based on the player staying healthy. You can't control that. Based on players staying on the field through and avoiding off-field incidents or trouble with the coach or getting benched or just not performing. You can't control that. And trying to maneuver after bad picks in the draft, trying to force guys to trade with you. You can't control that either. One time you have 100% control, and that's the draft. Sure, throughout the weeks, you set your lineups. Throughout the weeks, you pull your waivers, you accept, reject trades, but still, that is not 100% control. You have 100% control one time, and that's the draft. So be sure, which leads to another thing I just said a few minutes ago, not too long ago. I said, make sure you make it to the draft and have the time, don't auto draft. Be sure to take the draft serious because it's your time to get going. To me, and not only that, it's the most fun time of the whole season. Well, I'll sit here and I'll play the amount of leagues I play a lot of times is because I'm still, and I've been playing since 2005, still searching for the perfect draft. Searching for that draft I do, whether it's standard or auction, and man, that was the perfect draft. So the search for that continues, but still, the bottom line is 100% control, take the draft seriously. So yeah, but that's pretty much gonna wrap up, any of the draft tips. I didn't get into any of the players, what you should do in terms of quarterback or running back or receiver or whatever your setup is. That's gonna be in a next video where I'll talk about players or draft strategy in terms of actual execution. This was pretty much teaching you or trying to relay what it is that fantasy drafts are and some things that'll keep your head in the game and get you somewhat successful. So if you got any comments, feel free to ask them below. Like the page, subscribe to the page, or like the video rather. Subscribe to the page. There's going to be many more videos, and any way I can help, feel free to ask any questions, and I'll post the email page, the email link at the bottom so that you can hit me up with any questions there. I'm more than happy to help. So yeah, from FF Real Talk, that's it for now. And the next video is going to be based on some auction strategies, pretty much like this one, but some things to help you in terms of auction. So if you get down and dirty with auction, which are much more fun than standards, check out the next video. Until then, see y'all later and good luck. All right.